Commander Zeftos stood on the bridge of his ship, staring at the screen in front of him. The readings made no sense. His best science officer, Veltar, had checked the instruments 3 times already. "Sir, the energy readings are still the same," Veltar said, his 4 arms moving quickly over the control panel. "There is definitely something artificial on that planet." Zeftos scratched his scaled chin. In his 40 years of exploring space for the Cathari Empire, he had never seen anything like this. The planet looked normal from far away. It was the right size for life, had water and air, and orbited its star at a good distance. But the energy readings were strange. "What kind of energy is it?" Zeftos asked. "That's the problem, sir. It's not like anything in our databases. The patterns are organized, too organized to be natural, but they don't match any known technology from any species we know." The Cathari were proud of their knowledge. They had been exploring space for over 1,000 years. They knew about every major species in the galaxy. Their databases contained information about hundreds of different alien technologies. But this was something new. "Could it be a new species?" asked Miraket, the ship's security chief. She was younger than most of the crew, but she had sharp eyes and good instincts. "Possible," Zeftos said, "but look at the location. We're on the outer edge of the galaxy. Most species don't come out this far. There's nothing here worth finding." That was true. This part of space was empty and boring. No valuable minerals. No strategic importance. No trade routes. It was the kind of place that civilizations ignored. "Sir," Veltar said suddenly, his voice excited. "I'm getting better readings now that we're closer. These structures, they're huge. And there are a lot of them." The main screen changed to show a detailed scan of the planet's surface. What they saw made everyone on the bridge go quiet. The planet wasn't just inhabited. It was covered with cities, massive cities that stretched across entire continents. The energy signatures came from thousands of buildings, power plants, and what looked like defensive installations. "This isn't a new colony," Miraket whispered. "This is a major civilization. How did we miss this?" Zeftos was thinking the same thing. The Cathari had the best exploration fleet in the galaxy. Their ships could detect life signs from light years away. How had an entire civilization been hiding out here? "Veltar, scan for communication signals. If there's a civilization this big, they must be talking to each other." "Already doing it, sir. And, sir, I'm finding something very strange." "More strange than a hidden civilization?" "Yes, sir. The communication patterns, they look familiar, very familiar." Veltar's claws clicked against his control panel as he worked. His eyes were wide with confusion and something that might have been fear. "Sir, I think I know why these patterns look familiar. They match something in our historical databases." "What do you mean?" "The communication frequencies, the energy signatures, even the building designs. They all match records from 300 years ago. Records from the human colonies." The bridge went completely silent. Every crew member stared at Veltar. Someone dropped a tool, and the sound echoed in the quiet space. "That's impossible," Miraket said. "The humans are extinct. They were wiped out during the Great Purge Wars. Everyone knows that." Zeftos felt, his heart's beating faster. The humans had been a small species, not very important in galactic politics. They had colonies on maybe 20 planets. When the Purge Wars started, the humans got caught in the middle. Their colonies were destroyed, their ships were captured or destroyed, and their home planet was turned into a wasteland. The Galactic Council had official records. The human species was declared extinct 297 years ago. There were monuments to them on several worlds. Museums displayed human artifacts. Children learned about them in history classes as an example of what happened to species that couldn't protect themselves. "Run the scans again," Zeftos ordered. "Check everything twice." For the next hour, the crew worked frantically. They scanned the planet from every angle. They checked their instruments. They compared the readings to every database they had. The results were always the same. The technology signatures matched human patterns perfectly, but they were also much more advanced than anything humans had ever built. "Sir," Veltar said quietly, "there's something else. The defensive installations I mentioned, they're not just big, they're bigger than anything we have, bigger than anything anyone has." Zeftos looked at the tactical display. Red dots marked defensive positions all over the planet. Each dot represented weapons that could probably destroy his entire fleet. "Are they active?" "Yes, sir." "And sir, I think they know we're here." As if responding to his words, the ship's communication system came to life. A clear, strong signal came from the planet. The voice that spoke was calm and pleasant, but there was something about it that made Zeftos's skin crawl. "Unknown vessel, this is Terran Colonial Defense Control. You are entering restricted space. Please state your intentions and prepare to be escorted to a safe harbor." The voice spoke in perfect Cathari language, but the accent was strange, old-fashioned, like someone who had learned the language from very old books. "Terran?" Miraket whispered. "That's the human word for their species." Zeftos stepped forward to the communication panel. His hands were shaking slightly, but he kept his voice steady. "This is Commander Zeftos of the Cathari Exploration Fleet. We detected unusual energy readings and came to investigate. We were not aware this system was inhabited." There was a pause. When the voice came back, it sounded amused. "Of course you weren't aware, Commander. That was the point. Please follow the navigation beacon we're sending you. Land at the coordinates provided. A diplomatic team will meet you there." "And if we refuse?" Another pause. This one was longer and somehow more threatening. "Commander, you have a fine ship and a brave crew. It would be unfortunate if something happened to them. Please follow the beacon." Zeftos looked at his tactical officer. The young Cathari was staring at his instruments with wide eyes. "Sir, we're being targeted by over 200 weapon systems. I can't even identify half of them." The choice was clear. Follow the beacon or be destroyed by weapons they didn't understand. "Set course for the beacon," Zeftos ordered, "and send a message to Fleet Command. Tell them we've found something impossible." As the ship descended toward the planet, Zeftos stared out at the surface below. Cities stretched to the horizon. Ships moved between the cities, ships that looked like they could outrun and outfight anything the Cathari had. How had the humans survived? How had they built all this? And most importantly, why had they hidden for 300 years? The landing pad they were directed to was massive. It could have held 50 ships the size of theirs, but it was empty except for a small group of figures waiting for them. "Sir," Veltar said softly, "life sign readings from the greeting party. They're definitely human. But, sir, there's something different about them." "Different how?" "I don't." "No, sir. The readings are enhanced somehow. Like they're human, but more than human." Zeftos took a deep breath. In a few minutes, he would be face-to-face with members of a species that was supposed to be extinct. A species that had somehow built a civilization that could threaten the entire Cathari fleet. "Prepare for landing," he ordered. "And everyone remember, we're guests here. Very unwelcome guests." The landing ramp of Zeftos's ship lowered slowly. He walked down it with 6 of his best officers, all wearing their finest uniforms and carrying no weapons. The humans had been very clear about that rule. The first thing he noticed was the air. It was clean and fresh, with a slight smell of growing plants. The second thing he noticed was the welcoming committee. There were 5 humans waiting for them. They looked exactly like the humans in the history books, except for their clothes. Instead of the simple fabric clothing that humans used to wear, these humans were dressed in what looked like advanced military uniforms. The material seemed to shift color slightly as they moved, and there were small devices attached to their clothing that Zeftos didn't recognize. The human in front was a woman with dark hair and calm brown eyes. She stepped forward and raised her hand in what Zeftos recognized as a human greeting gesture. "Commander Zeftos, welcome to Haven Colony. I am Director Sarah Chen. We apologize for the threatening welcome, but we've learned to be careful with visitors. Her voice was the same one they had heard on the radio. She spoke Cathari perfectly, but there was still that strange old accent. Director, Chen, Zeftos replied, trying to keep his voice steady. I must admit we're very surprised to find humans here. Our records show that your species was declared extinct nearly 300 years ago. Sarah Chen smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. Yes, we know what your records show. We made sure of that. You made sure of that? Commander, there's a lot to explain, and this landing pad isn't the best place for it. Would you and your officers like to join us for a proper meeting? We've prepared facilities that should be comfortable for Cathari physiology. Zeftos looked around the landing pad. It was surrounded by buildings that reached up into the sky. Ships moved overhead. Ships with designs he had never seen before. In the distance, he could see more cities spread out across the landscape. This is quite a colony you have here, he said. Thank you. We've been working on it for a while. One of Zeftos's officers, a young engineer named Keptar, spoke up. Director Chen, if you don't mind me asking, how many people live here? On Afar. This planet? About 40 million? The Cathari officers looked at each other in shock. 40 million was more than lived on some major Cathari worlds. 40 million, repeated Miraket. But how is that possible? The human population was never more than a few billion across all your colonies, and that was before the wars. Sarah Chen's expression became more serious. Like I said, there's a lot to explain. Shall we go inside? They followed the humans into the nearest building. The inside was even more impressive than the outside. The walls seemed to be made of some kind of smart material that provided perfect lighting without any visible light sources. The floors were soft but supportive, adjusting to each person's weight and walking style. Your technology, Veltar said quietly, it's quite advanced. Thank you, said one of the other humans, a tall man with gray hair. We've had some time to work on improvements. They were led to a large room with a table and chairs, sized for both humans and Cathari. The walls showed a view of the city, outside, but Zeftos suspected it was more than just a window. Please sit, Sarah Chen said. Can we offer you anything? Water? Food? We have information about Cathari dietary needs. Just water, thank you, Zeftos said. He was too nervous to eat. A moment later, containers of water appeared on the table. They were the perfect temperature and in containers shaped for Cathari. Hands. Now, Sarah Chen said, settling into her chair, I'm sure you have questions. Many questions, Zeftos said, but the most important one is simple. How are you here? How are any of you here? That's a long story, Commander. Let me start with a question for you. What do you know about the Great Purge Wars? Zeftos thought back to his history lessons. They were a series of conflicts that happened about 300 years ago. Several species fought over territory and resources. Many colonies were destroyed, including all the human colonies. The wars ended when the major powers signed peace treaties. That's the official version, Sarah Chen said, but it's not quite correct. She touched a device on the table and the walls around them changed. Instead of showing the city outside, they now showed star maps and battle recordings. The truth is that the wars were started deliberately by several major powers who wanted to eliminate smaller species and take their territories. Humans weren't the only target, but we were one of the main ones. The recordings showed space battles and destroyed colonies. Zeftos recognized some of the ships as belonging to species that were still major powers today. We knew what was coming, Sarah Chen continued. Our intelligence services had learned about the plans months before the first attacks. We had a choice. We could fight a war we couldn't win, or we could try something else. Something else? We could disappear. Another human, a woman with short blonde hair, spoke for the first time. My name is Dr. Rebecca Walsh. I was part of the team that planned what we called the Exodus Protocol. Exodus Protocol? The plan was simple in concept, but difficult to execute. We would make it look like humanity had been completely destroyed, while actually evacuating our entire population to hidden colonies. Dr. Walsh touched the control device, and the walls showed new images. They were pictures of destroyed colonies, burning cities, and refugee ships being attacked. We destroyed our own colonies, she said. We made it look like we were being wiped out. We even sacrificed some of our ships and settlements to make the deception complete. Zeftos felt sick. You destroyed your own people? We evacuated them. First, Sarah Chen said quickly, every single person who wanted to leave was brought to safety. The only casualties were volunteers who stayed behind to make the deception work. But why? Miraket asked. Why go through all that? Why not just ask for help from the Galactic Council? The humans looked at each other. There was something in their expressions that made Zeftos uncomfortable. Because the Galactic Council was part of the problem, Sarah Chen said. Several council members were involved in planning the purges. They wanted the smaller species eliminated. The room went quiet. This was much more serious than Zeftos had expected. You're accusing the Galactic Council of genocide, he said carefully. We're not accusing them, Commander. We're stating a fact. We have the records to prove it. Dr. Walsh activated another display. This one showed documents and communication, records. Even from a distance, Zeftos could see official council seals and signatures. We spent the first 50 years after our extinction gathering evidence, Dr. Walsh said. We have communications between council members discussing how to divide up human territory. We have records of weapons shipments to the forces that attacked our colonies. We have everything. Why haven't you presented this evidence? Keptar asked. To who? Sarah Chen asked. The same council that planned the genocide? The same governments that benefited from it? She had a point. If the evidence was real, then the entire galactic government was corrupt. So you've been hiding here for 300 years, Zeftos said. Not just here, said the gray-haired man. Haven Colony is just one of many. We have settlements throughout this region of space. How many? Enough, Sarah Chen said. Commander, we didn't just hide. We rebuilt. We grew. We developed new technologies. We've become something much more than we were before the wars. What do you mean? Sarah Chen stood up and walked to one of the walls. She placed her hand on it, and the entire wall became transparent, showing the city outside in perfect detail. Look around you, Commander. What do you see? Zeftos looked. He saw a city that was more advanced than anything on the Cathari homeworld. He saw ships that moved with impossible grace. He saw technology that shouldn't exist. We see a civilization that's supposed to be extinct, he said. You see a civilization that's been preparing, Sarah Chen said. Preparing for the day when we would have to reveal ourselves. Why now? Why reveal yourselves to us? Sarah Chen turned back to face him. Her expression was very serious. Because, Commander, the galaxy is in danger. The same forces that tried to destroy us 300 years ago are moving again, and this time, they're not just targeting small species. What do you mean? I mean that you and your people are next on their list, and we're the only ones who can help you. Zeftos felt his blood go cold. What do you mean we're next? Sarah Chen walked back to the table but didn't sit down. Instead, she touched the control device again. The walls around them changed to show a map of the galaxy. Red dots appeared in several locations. Commander, what I'm about to show you is classified at the highest levels. Before we continue, I need you to understand that this information cannot leave this room until we decide how to proceed. You're asking me to keep secrets from my own government. I'm asking you to help us save your government. Zeftos looked at his officers. They all looked as confused and worried as he felt. But there was something about Sarah Chen's manner that made him believe she was telling the truth. Show us, he said. The galaxy map zoomed in on different areas. Each red dot expanded to show detailed information about planets, military installations, and fleet movements. For the past 50 years, we've been monitoring galactic activities very carefully, Dr. Walsh said. We've noticed patterns that match what happened before the Great Purge Wars. What kind of patterns? Miraket asked. Mysterious. Accidents happening to military leaders who ask too many questions. Trade disputes that turn into armed conflicts. Small species suddenly having internal wars that weaken them. Resource shortages that force governments to make desperate deals. The map showed dozens of incidents across the galaxy. When viewed together, they formed a clear pattern of manipulation and control. Someone has been pulling strings across the entire galaxy, Sarah Chen said. The same someone who orchestrated the Great Purge Wars. But who? Veltar asked. Who has that kind of power? Not who, Commander. What? The map changed again. This time, it showed something that made Zeftos's hearts skip a beat. It was a star chart of the area beyond the galaxy's edge, and it showed movement, lots of movement. 300 years ago, during our evacuation, some of our deep space scouts detected something disturbing, Dr. Walsh said. Ships. Thousands of ships, moving toward our galaxy from outside. Ships from where? From another galaxy entirely. We call them the Devourers. A new image appeared on the walls. It showed a ship unlike anything Zeftos had ever seen. It was enormous, easily the size of a small moon. Its shape was wrong somehow, as if it had been grown instead of built. The Devourers are not like us, Sarah Chen explained. They don't have individual minds the way we do. They share a collective consciousness. When they conquer a species, they don't just take their territory. They take their knowledge, their memories, their entire culture, and add it to their collective. That's impossible, Keptar said. How could they do that? We don't fully understand it ourselves, Dr. Walsh admitted. But we've seen the results. Entire civilizations that simply vanish, leaving behind empty worlds and no trace of what happened to the people. The images on the walls showed empty planets, cities that looked abandoned but not destroyed, ships floating in space with no one aboard. The Great Purge Wars weren't random, Sarah Chen continued. They were preparation. The Devourers had agents already in the galaxy. They were weakening the major powers and eliminating smaller species that might cause problems later. Agents? Zeftos asked. Individuals from various species who had been converted. They still looked normal, but they were working for the Devourers. Some of them might not even have known it themselves. This was getting worse and worse. Zeftos tried to think of any suspicious behavior he had seen from government officials or military leaders. There had been some strange decisions lately, some policies that didn't make sense. How do you know all this? Because we've been fighting them, Sarah Chen said simply. The walls showed new images. These were battle recordings, but not like any battles Zeftos had seen before. The human ships moved with incredible speed and precision. Their weapons seemed to tear holes in space itself, and they were fighting against ships that looked like the Devourer vessel they had seen earlier. For 300 years, we've been preparing for their arrival, Dr. Walsh said. We knew they were coming, but we didn't know when. We used the time to develop new technologies, new weapons, new defenses. All in secret, Miraket said. Yes. Because we knew that if the galaxy learned the truth too early, it would cause panic. Wars would break out. The major powers would fight each other instead of preparing for the real threat. Zeftos was beginning to understand. So you've been protecting the galaxy without anyone knowing. Exactly. Every time a Devourer scout ship entered our space, we destroyed it. Every time one of their agents tried to cause major disruptions, we stopped them. Every time they tried to establish a foothold in our galaxy, we drove them back. But now something has changed, Sarah Chen said. The advanced scouts have stopped coming. That means the main fleet is close. The galaxy map appeared. Again, But this time it showed a massive formation of ships just outside the galaxy's edge. There were thousands of them, maybe tens of thousands. Our long-range sensors detected them 6 months ago, Dr. Walsh said. They'll be here within the year. Why are you telling us this now? Zeftos asked. Because we can't stop them alone, Sarah Chen said. We're powerful, but not that powerful. We need the galaxy's military forces to work with us, but first, those forces need to know what they're really fighting. And they need to be equipped with the right weapons, added the gray-haired man, who had introduced himself as General Marcus Torres. Our technology is specifically designed to fight the Devourers. Standard galactic weapons won't work against them. What do you mean? Devourer ships adapt, Dr. Walsh explained. If you hit them with an energy weapon, they develop resistance to that type of energy. If you use projectile weapons, they develop armor against those projectiles. Traditional tactics don't work. So how do you fight them? We developed weapons that change faster than they can adapt, General Torres said. Weapons that use principles they can't copy because those principles require something the Devourers don't have. Which is individual creativity, Sarah Chen said. The Devourers share all knowledge instantly across their collective. That makes them very efficient, but it also makes them predictable. They always choose the most logical solution to any problem. Humans don't always choose the logical solution, Dr. Walsh added with a slight smile. Sometimes we do things that make no sense tactically but work anyway. The Devourers can't predict that kind of behavior. Zeftos was trying to process all of this information. It was almost too much to believe. But the evidence was right in front of him. The technology, the ships, the detailed knowledge of galactic politics, it all fit together. What do you want from us? He asked. First, we want you to verify what... We're telling you, Sarah Chen said. We'll give you access to our databases, our sensor records, everything we have. Take it back to your government. Let them check it against their own intelligence. And then? Then we want them to make a choice. They can work with us to defend the galaxy, or they can ignore the threat and hope for the best. But if they choose to work with you, what would that mean? It would mean accepting human leadership in the war effort, General Torres said. It would mean using our weapons and following our tactics. It would mean trusting a species that's supposed to be extinct. Zeftos could already imagine how his government would react to that suggestion. The Cathari were proud warriors. They had been the galaxy's dominant military power for centuries. The idea of following orders from humans would be very hard for them to accept. There's something else, Sarah Chen said quietly. Something we haven't told you yet. What? The reason the Devourers are coming now. The reason they've stopped sending scouts and started moving their main fleet. Why? Because they've learned about us. They know that humans are still alive, and they know we've been interfering with their plans. Sarah Chen's expression was grim. Commander, the Devourers aren't just coming to conquer the galaxy anymore. They're coming specifically to wipe out humanity once and for all. And they're willing to destroy every other species in the galaxy to make sure they get us. The room went silent. The weight of what she had said settled over everyone like a heavy blanket. So you see, Sarah Chen continued, this isn't just about saving the galaxy from conquest. It's about preventing the complete destruction of all life in our galaxy. Zeftos felt like he was drowning in impossible choices. Everything he thought he knew about the galaxy had been turned upside down in the space of a few hours. How long do we have? He asked. To make the decision? Or to prepare for war? Both. The Devourer fleet will reach the outer systems in 8 to 10 months, Dr. Walsh said. But the decision needs to be made much sooner than that. If we're going to have any chance of winning, we need to start coordinating galactic defenses immediately. And if the galactic governments refuse to cooperate? Sarah Chen and General Torres looked at each other. There was something in their expressions that made Zeftos very nervous. Then we'll do what we've always done, Sarah Chen said. We'll protect the galaxy whether they want us to or not." Sarah Chen led them through corridors that seemed to go on forever. The building was much larger inside than it had looked from the outside. As they walked, Zeftos noticed details that made him increasingly uncomfortable. The walls showed displays of information, star charts, military data, surveillance footage from dozens of different worlds. Some of the footage showed Cathari military bases. Some showed the chambers where the Galactic Council met. All of it was being recorded without permission. "You've been watching us," he said. "We've been watching everyone," Sarah Chen replied. "Commander, let me show you something that will help you understand why." They entered a large chamber filled with screens and control stations. Humans worked at various posts, monitoring information flows from across the galaxy. But what caught Zeftos's attention was the center of the room. There was a large, transparent container, roughly the size of a small vehicle. Inside the container was something that made his skin crawl. It looked partly like a machine and partly like a living creature. Metal and flesh seemed to flow together in patterns that hurt to look at. The thing was clearly alive. He could see it breathing and moving slightly. But it was also clearly artificial. "What is that?" Veltar whispered. "That," said Dr. Walsh, "is a devourer agent. We captured it 6 months ago when it tried to infiltrate the Cathari military command." Zeftos felt sick. "It tried to infiltrate our command?" "Successfully infiltrated," General Torres corrected. "We stopped it just before it reached its target." "What was its target?" "Admiral Kepros, your fleet commander." Zeftos knew Admiral Kepros personally. The Admiral was a good officer and a loyal Cathari. The idea that something like this creature had almost reached him was terrifying. "How? Does it work?" Mirak had asked, though she looked like she didn't really want to know the answer. "The Devourers can take any organic being and convert them," Dr. Walsh explained. "The process replaces parts of their brain with organic technology that connects them to the Devourer collective. From the outside, they look exactly the same. They even have most of their original memories and personality. But they're not really themselves anymore," Sarah Chen added. "They're extensions of the Devourer consciousness. Everything they see and hear gets reported back to the collective." "How many of these agents are there?" Zeftos asked. "We don't know exactly. We've identified and eliminated 47 over the past decade. But there are probably more." The implications were staggering. If the Devourers had agents throughout the galaxy's governments and militaries, then they knew everything about galactic defenses. "This is why we couldn't work through official channels," Sarah Chen said. "We never knew who we could trust." Dr. Walsh activated a control panel, and new displays appeared around the room. They showed detailed scans of the captured agent. "The good news is that we've learned how to detect them," she said. "The conversion process leaves traces that our scanners can pick up. The bad news is that our detection technology doesn't work at long range." "How long range?" "About 50 meters. To detect an agent, we need to be in the same room with them." General Torres stepped forward. "Commander, we've scanned your entire crew. You're all clean. No Devourer modifications." Zeftos felt a moment of relief, followed immediately by anger. "You scanned us without permission?" "Would you have given permission if we had asked?" He had to admit that he probably wouldn't have, but it still felt like a violation. "The point is," Sarah Chen said, "we can help you identify agents in your government and military, but only if you're willing to work with us." She led them to another section of the chamber. This area was filled with weapon displays and armor, suits that looked like nothing Zeftos had ever seen. "These are the weapons we've developed to fight the Devourers," General Torres explained. "They work on principles that the Devourers can't adapt to quickly." He picked up what looked like a simple rifle. But when he activated it, energy patterns flowed along its surface in complex, constantly changing designs. "This weapon fires quantum-entangled particles," he said. "Each shot is unique at the quantum level. The Devourers can't develop resistance because no two shots are exactly the same. And this, Dr. Walsh said, indicating a suit of armor, provides protection that adapts faster than Devourer weapons can adjust. It uses human intuition patterns to make random defensive changes. Human intuition patterns? The armor is linked to the wearer's subconscious mind. It makes defensive adjustments based on gut feelings and instinct rather than logical analysis. Since the Devourers operate on pure logic, they can't predict what the armor will do. Zeftos examined the weapons and armor more closely. The technology was incredibly advanced, but it was also somehow familiar. The design principles felt human, even though they were far beyond anything humans should have been able to build. "How did you develop all this?" he asked. 300 years of focused research, Sarah Chen said. When you're fighting for the survival of your entire species, you tend to be very motivated. And you've tested these weapons? Extensively. Every time the Devourers sent scouts into our territory, we captured some and tested our equipment against them. We've refined our technology through dozens of small battles. General Torres activated a holographic display that showed battle recordings. Zeftos watched human ships fighting against Devourer vessels. The human weapons seemed to tear through Devourer defenses easily, while the Devourer weapons barely scratched the human ships. "But Commander," Sarah Chen said, "weapons are only part of the solution. The real challenge is coordination." "What do you mean?" "The Devourers fight as a single collective consciousness. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon is perfectly coordinated. They don't have communication delays or strategic disagreements. When they decide to do something, every unit acts immediately. Galactic forces don't work that way," Dr. Walsh added. "Each species has different command structures, different tactics, different equipment. In a traditional battle, that diversity can be a strength. Against the Devourers, it's a fatal weakness. So what's the solution?" "Unified command," General Torres said. "Every ship, every weapon, every soldier needs to be under a single command structure that can make decisions fast enough to match the Devourer collective." Zeftos was beginning to see where this was leading. "And you want that command structure to be human." "We don't want it," Sarah Chen said. "We're willing to do it because it's necessary. Commander, we've been studying the Devourers for 3 centuries. We understand how they think, how they fight, how they can be defeated. No other species has that knowledge. But you're asking the galaxy's governments to give up their military independence. We're asking them to choose between independence and survival." Sarah Chen led them to one final display. This one showed a simulation of what would happen if the Devourers invaded without unified resistance. The simulation was horrifying. World after world fell to the Devourer fleet. Entire civilizations were converted or destroyed. Within 2 years, the galaxy was empty except for Devourer ships. "This is what happens if we fight separately," Dr. Walsh said. "The Devourers defeat, each species one at a time, adding their knowledge and resources to the collective with each victory." "And this," General Torres said, starting a different simulation, "is what happens if we fight together." This simulation showed a coordinated defense. Galactic forces equipped with human weapons and following human tactics met the Devourer fleet at the galaxy's edge. The battle was fierce, but the combined forces held. Some worlds were lost, but the galaxy survived. "The difference is dramatic," Sarah Chen said, "but it requires complete trust and cooperation." Zeftos studied the simulations carefully. The tactical analysis looked solid, but the political implications were staggering. "My government will want proof," he said. "More proof than just simulations and captured agents." "We understand," Sarah Chen said. "That's why we're prepared to give you a demonstration." "What kind of demonstration?" "There's a Devourer scouting fleet approaching the Vega system. 3 ships, fairly small. They'll arrive in about 2 weeks. "How do you know that?" "Because we've been tracking their movements for months. Commander, would you like to watch us destroy that fleet?" Zeftos felt his heart's racing. You're offering to let us observe actual combat? More than observe. We're offering to let you participate. Your ship can join our task force. You can see our weapons and tactics in action. You can verify everything we've told you. And after that? After that, you take everything you've learned back to your government. You show them the evidence, the technology, the tactical data. You let them make their choice. But what if they choose wrong? What if they refuse to cooperate? Sarah Chen's expression became very serious. Then we'll fight the Devourers ourselves, and we'll do whatever it takes to protect the galaxy, even if that means making decisions that other species don't like. What kind of decisions? The kind that prioritize survival over politics. Zeftos didn't like the sound of that, but he was beginning to understand the impossible position the humans were in. They had knowledge and technology that could save the galaxy, but they couldn't use it effectively without cooperation from the very governments they had been hiding from. "Commander," Sarah Chen said quietly, "we've been carrying this burden." 2 weeks later, Zeftos stood on the bridge of his ship, watching the most incredible battle he had ever seen. His vessel was part of a small human fleet approaching the Vega system, where 3 Devourer scout ships waited. The human ships were unlike anything in the galactic fleet. They moved with perfect coordination, as if they were all controlled by a single mind. But Zeftos knew they weren't. Each ship had its own captain and crew. They were just that well trained. Devourer ships. "Detected," announced the tactical officer on the human command ship. The voice came through the communication system clearly. "Beginning approach pattern Alpha 7. Zeftos watched the tactical display. The human ships spread out in a formation that made no sense according to standard military doctrine. They left huge gaps in their defensive lines and seemed to be approaching from the worst possible angles. "Commander Chen," he said over the radio, "your formation looks very vulnerable." Sarah Chen's voice came back calm and confident. "That's the point, Commander. We want the Devourers to think they have easy targets." The Devourer ships began moving toward the human fleet. They were massive vessels, each one larger than a Kethari battleship. Their hulls seemed to shift and change as they moved, adapting to threats that didn't exist yet. "All ships," Sarah Chen announced, "prepare for Pattern Omega engagement. Remember, unpredictability is our greatest weapon." "Pattern Omega?" Zeftos asked. "You'll see," Dr. Walsh said. She was on his bridge as an observer and advisor. "Every battle against the Devourers is different. We never use the same tactics twice." The Devourer ships opened fire first. Their weapons were unlike anything Zeftos had seen before. Instead of energy beams or projectiles, they fired what looked like living metal that moved through space like liquid, seeking targets and adapting its properties as it moved. The human ships didn't try to dodge. Instead, they flew directly into the incoming fire. Zeftos was sure he was about to watch the entire human fleet get destroyed. But something impossible happened. The Devourer weapons simply passed through the human ships without causing any damage. "How?" Veltar gasped. "Phase shifting," Dr. Walsh explained. "Our ships can temporarily shift into a different dimensional phase. The Devourer weapons exist in normal space, so they can't touch us while we're shifted." "But how can you fight back? If you're in a different dimension?" "Watch." The human ships suddenly became solid again, but now they were inside the Devourer formation. At point-blank range, they opened fire with weapons that seemed to tear holes in space itself. The Devourer ships tried to adapt. Their hulls began changing, developing new armor and defensive systems. But the human weapons changed faster. Each shot was different from the last, using different principles, different energy types, different approaches. One Devourer ship fired, a new type of weapon that created a gravity well around one of the human ships. But the human ship responded by splitting into 3 smaller ships, each one escaping the gravity well from a different direction. "The ships can split apart?" Miraket asked in amazement. "Modular design," Dr. Walsh said. "Every human ship can separate into smaller units or combine with other ships to form larger ones. The Devourers can't adapt to changing ship configurations fast enough. The battle continued for 20 minutes. The Devourer ships fought desperately, using weapons and tactics that Zeftos had never imagined. But every time they adapted to one human strategy, the humans switched to something completely different. Finally, the last Devourer ship exploded in a burst of strange energy. The human fleet regrouped and began scanning the debris. Battle concluded, Sarah Chen announced. No human casualties, all Devourer vessels destroyed. Recovery teams, begin salvage operations. Zeftos was speechless. He had just watched a small human fleet destroy 3 ships that should have been able to defeat a much larger force. How many ships do you have? He asked Dr. Walsh. Enough, she said. But Commander, what you just saw was a minor skirmish. When the main Devourer fleet arrives, there will be thousands of ships, not 3. Over the next few days, the humans showed Zeftos and his crew everything. They toured the salvage operations, where human scientists studied the destroyed Devourer technology. They visited hidden military bases throughout the sector. They saw the massive shipyards where new human vessels were being built. But the most impressive thing was the scope of the human operation. There were colonies in dozens of star systems, millions of humans living and working in secret. An entire civilization that had been growing and developing for 3 centuries while the rest of the galaxy thought they were extinct. This is incredible, Keptar said as they toured a massive research facility. You've built a civilization that rivals any of the major galactic powers. Actually, General Torres said, we've built something much more powerful than any of the major galactic powers. We've built a civilization that's completely focused on a single goal, which is survival. Not just human survival, but the survival of all life in the galaxy. They showed Zeftos the strategic plans for the coming war. The humans had detailed information about every major military installation in the galaxy. They knew the strengths and weaknesses of every species' technology. They had contingency plans for dozens of different scenarios. You've been planning this for 300 years, Zeftos said. We've been preparing for 300 years, Sarah Chen corrected. Planning is what we're doing now. She brought up a holographic display of the galaxy. Red arrows showed the expected Devourer invasion routes. Blue symbols marked the positions of galactic military forces. Green symbols showed hidden human assets. If the galactic governments cooperate with us, we can establish a defensive line here, she said, pointing to a region near the galaxy's edge. We can stop the Devourers before they penetrate far into inhabited space. And if they don't cooperate, then we fall back to contingency plans. We protect what we can and try to minimize the damage. What does that mean exactly? Sarah Chen hesitated. It means we prioritize the survival of the galaxy over the sovereignty of individual governments. We make decisions based on tactical necessity rather than political acceptability. Zeftos was beginning to understand why the humans had been so secretive. The power they had accumulated was enormous. If they chose to use it for conquest rather than defense, they could probably take over the entire galaxy. You're asking us to trust you with everything, he said. Yes, we are. How do we know you won't use this power against us after the Devourers are defeated? Sarah Chen was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was tired. Commander, do you know what it's like to carry the burden of an entire galaxy's survival? Do you know what it's like to sacrifice everything your people are for the sake of everyone else's future? She gestured to the displays around them, showing the vast human civilization that existed in secret. We could have revealed ourselves years ago. We could have demanded recognition, territory, representation in the Galactic Council. We could have used our technology to become the dominant power in the galaxy. Why didn't you? Because that wasn't the mission. The mission was to prepare for the Devourers. Everything else was secondary. General Torres stepped forward. Commander, we've spent 3 centuries proving that we can be trusted. We've protected the galaxy without asking for anything in return. We've sacrificed our own interests for the greater good over and over again. But now we need help, Dr. Walsh added. The final battle is coming, and it's too big for us to handle alone. We can't save the galaxy by ourselves, no matter how advanced our technology is. Sarah Chen activated one more display. This one showed population figures for all the major species in the galaxy. There are over 2 trillion intelligent beings in our galaxy, she said. Humans make up less than 1% of that population. We can't protect 2 trillion people by ourselves. But you can teach others how to protect themselves. Exactly. But only if they're willing to learn. Zeftos looked at the strategic displays one more time. The scope of the threat was enormous. The scope of the human preparation was equally enormous. But the scope of the cooperation required was beyond anything the galaxy had ever attempted. What exactly are you asking for? He said. Complete integration of all galactic military forces under human command, Sarah Chen said. Immediate deployment of human weapons and technology to all major fleets. Identification and elimination of all devourer agents in government and military positions. And absolute trust that we will use this power only to defend the galaxy. That's asking for a lot. Yes, it is. But, Commander, consider the alternative. She activated the simulation they had shown him before, the one where the galaxy fell to the devourers in less than 2 years. The choice is simple, she said. Trust us with temporary command authority, or watch everything you've ever cared about get absorbed into the Devourer Collective. Zeftos closed his eyes and tried to think. Everything the humans had shown him pointed to the same conclusion. They were telling the truth about the threat. They were telling the truth about their capabilities. And they were probably telling the truth about being the galaxy's only hope. But accepting their help meant accepting human dominance. It meant admitting that his proud warrior people needed to follow the lead of a species they had considered primitive and...
The sky above Aldara Prime burned red with fire. Explosions lit up the atmosphere as the last of the orbital defense platforms fell. Dr. Ilara watched from the window of the science complex, her 4-fingered hands trembling slightly. This was the 3rd day of the attack. Soon the Krakthar ships would break through and begin their ground assault. "Doctor, please, we must finish the transmission," said her assistant from across the room. Dr. Ilara turned away from the window. The quantum communication device hummed softly on the lab table. It was their last hope, an experimental machine designed to send messages across vast distances of space without the normal delays. No one had ever tested it beyond their own solar system. But they had no choice now. "Is it ready?" she asked. "Yes. We've connected it to our deepest astronomical databases. The message will reach all catalog systems with signs of advanced civilization." Dr. Ilara nodded and stepped to the device. She placed her hand on the scanner and spoke clearly. "This is Dr. Ilara of the Aldaran people. Our worlds are under attack by the Krakthar Dominion. They have destroyed our outer colonies and now attack our homeworld. We are a peaceful species with advanced technology but limited defensive capabilities. We offer our knowledge freely to any who might help us. Please, we have little time left." She ended the transmission with the press of a button. The machine hummed louder, consuming enormous power as it sent her desperate plea across the stars. "Will anyone hear us?" her assistant asked. Dr. Ilara looked back at the burning sky. "I don't know. The galaxy is vast, and we are just one small voice calling out." Lisa Winters stared at her console in disbelief. It was just past midnight at the United Earth Defense Force headquarters in Colorado. As communications specialist for the night shift, she'd expected another quiet evening of routine signals and standard check-ins from Earth's small fleet of interstellar vessels. "Commander Harris," she called out. "Sir, you need to see this." Jack Harris put down his coffee and walked over. He was a tall man with short gray hair and eyes that had seen 20 years of military service. "What am I looking at, Winters?" "Sir, we're receiving a signal unlike anything I've ever seen. It's coming through on channels that shouldn't be possible. The quantum fluctuation patterns are, well, they're alien." Harris leaned closer. Is it a natural phenomenon? No, sir. There's a clear message embedded, audio and visual. The translation matrix is processing it now. The screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at a slender, blue-skinned being with large eyes and a delicate face. The message played, the alien's voice translated into English by the computer. When it finished, Harris stood straight. Wake up, Admiral Dawson. Now. Let me understand this correctly, Admiral Frank Dawson said as he paced the conference room. An alien species we've never encountered or even heard of is asking for our help against another alien species that's attacking them. The UEDF Council sat around the table. Images from the Alderaan message hovered in the air above them, showing the devastation of their outer colonies and the approaching Krakthar fleet. Yes, sir, Lisa Winters replied. We've verified the signal is genuine. The quantum communication method they used is beyond our current technology, which suggests they do indeed have advanced scientific knowledge, added Dr. Samantha Wells, the chief science officer. Knowledge they're offering to share. But we know nothing about either of these species, said General Richard Porter. For all we know, the aggressors have legitimate reasons for their actions. This could be a trap to draw us into someone else's war. Our probes have never reached that far into the galaxy, Harris pointed out. This is the first contact with either species. Dawson stopped pacing. What are our capabilities if we decide to respond? The Third Fleet could be ready in 72 hours, said Admiral Gloria Chen. The new warp drives could get us there in about 2 weeks, though we'd be pushing them beyond recommended limits. 2 weeks might be too late, Lisa said quietly. The room fell silent. Dawson looked at each face around the table. Humanity has dreamed of meeting other intelligent life for centuries, he said finally. We've wondered if we were alone in the universe. Now we know we're not. And the first thing we hear is a cry for help. He paused. What does it say about us if we ignore it? Sir, with all due respect, our first duty is to Earth, General Porter argued. Is it? Dawson asked. I always thought our duty was to humanity, to represent the best of what we can be. He turned to the window, looking out at the stars visible in the night sky. If we ignore this call today, who will answer when we're the ones calling tomorrow? He turned back to the room. Decision made. Admiral Chen, prepare the Third Fleet for immediate departure. I want every available ship. Dr. Wells, gather all the data we have on the region of space the signal came from. Commander Harris, you'll coordinate with Communications Specialist Winters to establish a response protocol. Yes, sir, they replied in unison. And everyone, Dawson added, keep in mind that we're about to make history, the first humans to engage in combat beyond our solar system. Let's make sure it's history our descendants can be proud of. The news spread quickly across Earth. Humanity had received a distress call from the stars, and they were answering it. In shipyards across the planet and on the moon, vessels were prepared for battle. Weapons were loaded, shields reinforced, and engines primed for the long journey ahead. On the UES Valiant, Captain Diana Moore watched as her crew made final preparations. As flagship of the response fleet, the Valiant would lead the charge into unknown territory. Captain, all systems are ready, reported her first officer, Sam Russell. The fleet reports full combat readiness. Diana nodded. The Valiant was the most powerful warship humans had ever built, a testament to the unfortunate truth that mankind had gotten very good at warfare over the centuries. Now those skills would be put to use defending another species. Lieutenant Blackwell, is your tactical team prepared? She asked. Peter Blackwell looked up from his station. Yes, Captain. We've analyzed the Alderaan data on Krakthar ships and developed initial combat strategies. We'll refine them during the journey as we learn more. Engineer Campbell, how are the engines? Susan Campbell's voice came through the comm system from the engine room. Ready, Captain. I've pushed the warp field stabilizers beyond specs. We'll get there faster than anyone thinks possible. Diana took her seat in the command chair. On the main screen, she could see the other ships of the fleet moving into formation around them. 50 of Earth's finest vessels, crewed by the best men and women humanity had to offer. Communications, Send to all ships, prepare for departure on my mark. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. Somewhere across the galaxy, the Aldarans were fighting for survival, not knowing if their message had been heard or if help was coming. They think no one is coming, she said quietly. Then louder. Let's prove them wrong. All ships, engage warp drive. Take us to Aldara. The stars on the view screen stretched into lines as the human fleet leapt toward their destiny, moving like a gathering storm across the void between worlds. The stars blurred past the viewport as the UES Valiant pushed its engines harder than any human ship had done before. Captain Diana Moore studied the holographic display of the Aldaran system. According to the data they had received, the Krakthur, Dominion had already taken the 3 outer planets and was closing in on the Aldaran homeworld. Lieutenant Blackwell, update on our tactical analysis? She asked. Peter Blackwell looked up from his station. He was younger than most officers of his rank, but his mind for strategy had earned him his position. The Krakthar rely heavily on numbers, Captain. Their individual ships aren't as advanced as ours, but they use swarm tactics to overwhelm enemies. Like insects, Diana said. Exactly. They surround and isolate targets, then concentrate fire. But their coordination suggests some kind of central command structure. If we can disrupt that, we might have an advantage. Diana nodded. Work with Engineer Campbell to see if we can develop something to jam their communications. Already on it, Captain, came Susan Campbell's voice from the comlink. I'm studying the signal patterns from the Aldaran data. Their technology is amazing. I wish we were meeting them under better circumstances. The ship shuddered slightly as they pushed deeper into warp speed. How are the engines holding up, Campbell? Diana asked. They're running hot, but I've got my team monitoring them round the clock. We'll get there, Captain, we have to. 10 days into their journey, the fleet encountered something unexpected. The alarm sounded throughout the Valiant, pulling Diana from her brief rest period. Report, she demanded as she entered the bridge. Unidentified vessel ahead, First Officer Sam Russell replied. Small, appears to be damaged. No weapon signatures detected. On screen, the main viewer showed a sleek, silvery ship drifting in space. Its hull bore scorch marks and several breaches were visible. Life signs? Diana asked. Faint readings. Not human, Sam said. The ship's design matches Aldaran specifications from the data we received. Diana stood. They're refugees, survivors from one of the outer colonies most likely. She made a quick decision. Inform the fleet we're making a brief stop. Ready medical teams and prepare to bring survivors aboard. Within the hour, 27 Aldarans were aboard the Valiant. They were slender, blue-skinned beings with large, intelligent eyes. Most were scientists and their families who had escaped just before the Krakthar destroyed their research station. One of them, an engineer named Zeth, was able to communicate through the translation system. We thought no one would answer our call, he told Diana in the ship's medical bay. Our long-range sensors detected your fleet approaching. We couldn't believe it. We came as soon as we received your message, Diana replied. What's the current situation at your homeworld? Zeth's expression darkened. The Krakthar have established a blockade. They're systematically destroying our orbital defenses. Once those are gone, they'll begin landing troops. He paused. Our species has never faced such violence. We have no standing military. Our society focused on science and art for thousands of years. Why are the Krakthar attacking you? Asked Peter Blackwell, who had joined them. Resources initially. Our outer colonies were rich in rare elements, but now, I believe they want our technology. The Krakthar conquer and absorb. They take what they want and destroy the rest. Diana exchanged glances with Peter. We need to know everything you can tell us about them. Their ships, their tactics, their weaknesses. I will share all I know, Zeth said. But you should understand something. The Krakthar don't consider other species as equals. They especially dismiss younger spacefaring races. They will not expect you to be a threat. A small smile crossed Diana's face. Then they're in for a surprise. In the days that followed, Zeth worked closely with the human officers. providing critical information about Krakthar technology and battle tactics. Susan Campbell spent hours with him in engineering, modifying the fleet's weapon systems to better target Krakthar vulnerabilities. Major Alan Grant, commander of the Valiant's Marine Battalion, trained his soldiers using holographic simulations, based on Zeth's descriptions of Krakthar ground forces. "They're bigger than us," he told his troops. "Stronger, too. But they've never faced humans before. They don't know what we're capable of when our backs are against the wall." His Marines, men and women selected from Earth's finest fighting forces, took in the images of the hulking armored Krakthar warriors. They didn't flinch. "If we need to engage on the ground," Grant continued, "remember your training. Use their size against them. They're used to intimidating enemies, not fighting ones that hit back." On the final day of their journey, Diana called a meeting of all ship captains via holographic conference. 50 commanders appeared before her, representing every vessel in the human fleet. "We'll arrive at the Aldaran system in 12 hours, she said. "According to our latest analysis, we'll be facing a Krakthar force approximately twice our size. They have no idea we're coming." Captain Ben Oliver of the UES Defiant spoke up. "What's our primary objective?" "Break the blockade around the Aldaran, homeworld. Establish a defensive perimeter. Buy time for the Aldarans to evacuate key personnel and data if needed." "And if we can't break through?" asked another captain. Diana looked at each of them. "Then we make the Krakthar pay such a price that they'll think twice before attacking another peaceful species. We show them that humanity stands against tyranny, wherever we find it in the galaxy." The captains nodded. They were military professionals, but this mission had become something more. It was humanity's first step onto a larger stage, their first declaration to the stars about what kind of species they were. "Return to your ships, prepare your crews." "Let's make history," Diana said. After the meeting, she stood alone on the bridge, watching the blur of stars through the viewport. Sam Russell approached quietly. "Nervous, Captain?" he asked. "A little," she admitted. "We're about to fight an enemy no human has ever faced, to defend a species we just met." "Having second thoughts?" Diana shook her head. "No, this is exactly where we should be." The ship's comm system activated. "Captain, this is engineering. We're ready to push the engines for the final approach." Diana straightened her uniform. "Understood. Tell all sections to prepare for battle stations. We drop out of warp in 10 hours. She took her seat in the command chair, her mind clear and focused. Somewhere ahead, the Aldarans were fighting for survival against overwhelming odds. They thought no one would come to their aid. They were wrong. Humanity was coming, and they were bringing a storm with them. The human fleet dropped out of warp at the edge of the Aldaran system. The sudden shift from faster-than-light travel back to normal space sent a ripple of energy across the ships. On the bridge of the UES Valiant, Captain Diana Moore took in the scene before her. The main view screen showed a blue-green planet, Aldara Prime, partially blocked by a ring of large black ships. The Krakthar blockade. Beyond them, flashes of weapons fire lit up the space around the planet as the last Aldaran defense platforms fought a losing battle. "All ships, battle formation," Diana ordered. "Lieutenant Blackwell, begin tactical sequence." Peter Blackwell's fingers moved quickly across his console. "Distributing targeting data to all ships. The Krakthar don't appear to have noticed us yet." "They've probably never had anyone sneak up on them before," Sam Russell said from his station. "Let's take advantage of that," Diana replied. "Engineer Campbell, status on our modified weapons?" Susan Campbell's voice came through clearly. "All set, Captain. The adjustments we made with Zeth's help should penetrate their shields at close range." Diana nodded. "Begin attack pattern Alpha. Signal the fleet." The 50 human ships moved in perfect formation, splitting into 3 separate groups. Diana watched as they accelerated toward the unsuspecting Krakthar blockade. "They're detecting us now," Peter reported. "Krakthar ships are breaking formation to face us." On the screen, the large alien vessels turned ponderously. They were massive. Compared to the human ships, each one nearly 3 times the size of the Valiant. Their dark hulls bristled with weapons, but their movements seemed slow, overconfident. "They're not rushing," Diana observed. "They don't see us as a threat." "Their mistake," Sam said. The first wave of human ships, fast attack cruisers, swept in from above the Krakthar formation. They launched a barrage of missiles that detonated just before reaching the alien shields. The explosions created a cloud of electromagnetic interference that temporarily blinded the Krakthar sensors. Behind this cover, the second wave, including the Valiant, moved in fast and close. "Weapons range in 3, 2, 1, Peter announced. "We have clean shots at 6 vessels." "Fire at will," Diana ordered. The Valiant's main cannons fired, shooting blue-white beams of energy at the nearest Krakthar ship. The beams struck the alien vessel's shields, which flared purple for a moment before failing completely. The Krakthar ship shuddered as the human weapons cut deep gashes in its hull. All around them, the rest of the human fleet engaged. Human vessels darted between the larger Krakthar ships, firing precisely at the weak points Zeth had identified. "The Krakthar are returning fire," Sam warned. The Valiant rocked as an energy blast struck its shields. "Shields holding at 82%, Peter reported. "Their weapons are powerful but slow to recharge." "Keep moving," Diana ordered. "Don't give them time to get a lock." On the tactical display, Diana watched as the human fleet executed their plan perfectly. While the first 2 groups engaged the blockade, the third group of ships bypassed the fight entirely, heading straight for the planet to assist the remaining Aldaran defenses. "We're receiving a transmission," said the communications officer. "It's from the Krakthar command ship." "On screen," Diana said. The view screen changed to show a massive, reptilian face. The Krakthar commander had gray-green scales, yellow eyes, with vertical pupils and a mouthful of sharp teeth. He wore ornate armor that gleamed dully in the lights of his bridge. "Unknown vessels," the Krakthar said, his words translated by the computer. "I am Supreme Warlord Gracchus of the Krakthar Dominion. You interfere in matters that do not concern you. Withdraw now or be destroyed." Diana stood tall. "This is Captain Diana Moore of the United Earth Defense Force. We're here in response to the Aldaran distress call. Your unprovoked attack on a peaceful species concerns all civilized beings. It is you who should withdraw." Gracchus's eyes narrowed. "Earth? We have no record of your kind. You are nothing. Primitive creatures who have stumbled beyond your place." He leaned closer to the screen. "I will add your ships to my fleet after I crush you." The transmission ended. "He seemed nice," Sam remarked dryly. Diana turned to Peter. "Status of the battle?" "We've disabled 4 Krakthar vessels and damaged 7 more. Our third group has reached the planet and is engaging the Krakthar, ships bombarding the surface. 3 of our ships have taken heavy damage but remain operational. And the Krakthar response? They're reorganizing, trying to surround us. They're calling in reinforcements from the far side of the planet." Diana studied the tactical display. "They're still following standard swarm tactics. They haven't adapted to our attack yet." She tapped her console. "All ships execute maneuver beta. Let's hit them again before they regroup." The human fleet changed formation smoothly, clustering into tight groups that concentrated their firepower on specific targets. 2 more Krakthar ships fell quickly under the coordinated assault. "Major Grant," Diana called over the comm. "Prepare your team. We've identified an Aldaran research facility under attack on the surface. We need to extract the scientists." "Ready when you are, Captain," came Grant's firm reply. "Captain," Sam interrupted, "we're receiving a transmission from the surface. It's Dr. Alara." The screen showed the blue-skinned Aldaran scientist. Behind her, lights flickered and smoke filled the room. "You came," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "You actually came?" "We received your message," Diana replied. "We're here to help. Hold on a little longer. We're sending a team to your location." "The facility contains our most advanced research," Dr. Alara said urgently. "If the Krakthar capture it, they will use it to conquer more worlds. It must not fall into their hands." "Understood. We'll get you and your data out." The ship rocked again as another Krakthar blast struck them. Shields at 64%, Peter reported. The Krakthar, command ship is moving toward us. Diana nodded. They've realized we're the greatest threat. Good. She opened a channel to engineering. Campbell, I need more power to the engines. We're going to show Supreme Warlord Gracchus what humans are really capable of. You'll have it, Captain, Susan replied. These engines were built on Earth. They won't let us down. Diana turned to Sam. Signal Major Grant to launch his dropships and tell the rest of the fleet to prepare for Phase 2. Her eyes fixed on the massive Krakthar command ship moving toward them. The storm is just beginning. 3 weeks passed since the humans' arrival at Aldara Prime. The initial surprise attack had broken the Krakthar blockade, but the alien invaders were far from defeated. Both sides had settled into a tense standoff, with the human fleet forming, a protective barrier around the planet. On the bridge of the UES Valiant, Captain Diana Moore studied the latest sensor reports. The ship still showed battle damage from previous engagements, with repair crews working around the clock. They're coming back, she said quietly. Sam Russell nodded grimly. Long-range sensors confirm it. A massive Krakthar reinforcement fleet, at least 3 times our size. Diana wasn't surprised. The Krakthar Dominion had conquered dozens of worlds. They wouldn't abandon their plans because of one defeat. How long do we have? 12 hours at most, Sam replied. Diana opened a channel to the entire fleet. All ships, this is Captain Moore. The enemy is returning with reinforcements. Prepare for battle. All captains will report for briefing in 1 hour. She turned to Peter Blackwell. Lieutenant, we need a new strategy. They'll be ready for our previous tactics. Peter looked up from his console, dark circles under his eyes from days of little sleep. I've been working on something with Zeth and the Aldaran scientists. It's risky, but it might give us an edge. Show me, Diana said. Below the surface of Aldara Prime, Major Alan Grant watched as human engineers worked alongside Aldarans in a vast underground facility. After extracting Dr. Alara and her team in the first days of the battle, Grant's Marines had established a secure base in the planet's largest research complex. Dr. Alara approached him, her movements graceful despite her exhaustion. Your people. Work quickly, Major. I've never seen such determination. Grant smiled slightly. Humans are good at adapting, especially when our backs are against the wall. The quantum disruption device is nearly complete, she said. But we've never built a weapon before. My people have always used our science for peaceful purposes. Sometimes you need to fight to protect that peace, Grant replied. The Krakthar don't give you much choice. His comm unit beeped. Grant here. Major, this is Captain Moore. The Krakthar reinforcements are approaching. Is the device ready? Grant looked to Dr. Alara, who nodded. Almost, Captain. We'll need a few more hours. Make it faster. We're running out of time. Admiral Frank Dawson stood on the bridge of the UES Sentinel as it dropped out of warp at the edge of the Aldaran system. Behind his flagship, 30 more human vessels appeared, Earth's second wave of defenders. Status report, he demanded. Our fleet is engaged with Krakthar reinforcements, his tactical officer replied. They're outnumbered but holding position around the planet. Dawson nodded. He had pushed every resource Earth could spare to get here in time. Signal Captain Moore. Tell her the cavalry has arrived. On the Valiant, Diana felt a surge of hope as the sensor officer called out, Captain, Earth vessels detected entering the system. About time, Sam said with a grin. Diana allowed herself a brief smile before turning back to the battle. The Krakthar ships had been hammering their lines for hours. 3 human vessels had already been lost, and many more damaged. Open a channel to Admiral Dawson, she ordered. Dawson's face appeared on screen. Captain Moore, looks like you could use some help. Glad to see you, sir. We've developed a plan with the Aldarans, but we need to get close to the Krakthar command ship to deploy it. Then let's make that happen. The Sentinel will lead the attack on their flank. Draw their attention while you make your move. The battle shifted as the fresh human ships entered the fray. Admiral Dawson's vessels struck the Krakthar from behind, forcing them to divide their attention. Now's our chance, Diana said. Engineer, Campbell, give me everything the engines have got. Lieutenant Blackwell, plot a course straight through their formation. That's practically suicide, Captain, Sam warned. Diana's eyes were fixed on the massive Krakthar command ship. Sometimes you have to charge straight into the storm. The Valiant surged forward, its engines glowing hot as Susan Campbell pushed them beyond their limits. 2 other human ships followed in its wake, creating a wedge formation that sliced through the Krakthar battle line. Enemy fire rocked the ship violently. Shields at 30%, Peter reported. Hull breaches on decks 3 and 4. Keep going, Diana ordered. Get me Major Grant. Grant's face appeared on screen, the underground facility visible behind him. We're ready, Captain. The device is complete. We're approaching the target. Prepare for transport. On the tactical display, Diana could see the Krakthar command ship growing closer. It was enormous, a floating fortress bristling with weapons. And at its heart was Supreme Warlord Gracchus, directing the battle against these unexpected human adversaries. They're targeting us with everything they've got, Sam warned, as another blast shook the ship. Shields critical, Peter reported. 1 more direct hit and they're down. Diana gripped her chair as the ship rocked again. Distance to target? 5,000 kilometers and closing, Peter replied. We'll be in transport range in 30 seconds. Major Grant, stand by, Diana ordered. On the screen, she could see Grant and a team of Marines gathering around a device the size of a small car. It pulsed with blue energy, a combination of human and Aldaran technology. 20 seconds to transport range. Peter counted down. Another hit rocked the ship. Shields are down, Sam shouted. Reroute emergency power, Diana ordered. We need to hold together just a little longer. 10 seconds. The ship groaned as another blast struck the now unprotected hull. We're in range, Peter announced. Major Grant, Diana called. You're clear to transport. On the screen, Grant nodded. See you on the other side, Captain. He and his team vanished in a flash of light as the transporter activated. Did they make it? Diana demanded. Peter checked his console. Confirmed, they've materialized on the Krakthar command ship. Diana allowed herself a small breath of relief. Now for Phase 2. All ships concentrate fire on the command ship's lower quadrant. We need to create a distraction for Grant's team. The human vessels still functional enough to fight poured fire onto the designated section of the massive Krakthar ship. Captain, Sam said urgently, we've got a problem. The Krakthar are moving their main planet killer weapon into position. They're preparing to fire on Aldara Prime. Diana's jaw tightened. How long? 10 minutes. Maybe less. She opened a channel. To Grant. Major, you need to hurry. The Krakthar are preparing to destroy the planet. Grant's voice came through, broken with static. Understood? Fighting our way. Heavy resistance. Near the central chamber. The transmission cut off. Diana looked at her damaged bridge, at her loyal crew fighting to save a species they hadn't known existed a month ago. Hold this position, she ordered. Whatever happens, we give Grant the time he needs. The Valiant shuddered as more Krakthar weapons found their mark, but Diana's eyes never left the massive command ship on the viewscreen. Somewhere inside that fortress, human Marines were fighting against impossible odds. The fate of Aldara Prime, and perhaps the future relationship between humans and the wider galaxy, hung in the balance. Major Alan Grant ducked as energy blasts scorched the wall behind him. His team of Marines had fought their way deep into the Krakthar command ship, leaving a trail of stunned and fallen enemies in their wake. The quantum disruption device hovered beside them on a gravity sled, its blue light pulsing steadily. How much further? Asked Sergeant Kelly Nash, reloading her weapon. Grant checked the map Zeth had helped them create. 2 more sections to the main command center. That's where we need to plant the device. A group of Krakthar warriors rounded the corner ahead, their massive armored forms filling the corridor. They were nearly 8 feet tall, with thick scales and powerful limbs. Take cover, Grant shouted as enemy fire erupted around them. The Marines responded with practiced precision, using the ship's structural supports as shelter while returning fire. The Krakthar were strong, but the humans were quick and adaptable. They'd been fighting for 3 weeks now, learning their enemies' patterns. Rogers, Martinez, flank left, Grant ordered. Johnson, suppressing fire. The Marines moved as directed, working like a well-oiled machine. They had trained for years for combat situations, though none had expected to be fighting alien invaders on a distant spaceship. For Earth and Aldara, Sergeant Nash shouted as they pushed forward, driving the Krakthar back. On the UES Valiant, Captain Diana Moore watched the tactical display with growing concern. The ship's systems were failing around her, with damage reports coming in from all decks. Yet they held their position, drawing fire from the Krakthar command ship to protect Grant's team inside. "Status of the planet killer weapon?" she asked. Peter. Blackwell checked his readings. "Power levels rising. 4 minutes until they can fire." Diana opened a channel to Engineer Campbell. "Susan, I need a miracle. Can you get our weapons back online?" In engineering, Susan wiped sweat from her brow as she worked amidst sparking panels and hissing coolant lines. "Working on it, Captain. Rerouting emergency power now." Diana turned to Sam. "Signal Admiral Dawson. Tell him to focus all available firepower on the planet killer's charging array. We need to buy more time." The battle raged across the stars above Aldara Prime. Human ships darted between the larger Krakthar vessels, striking with precision and retreating before the enemy could respond. It was a testament to human tactics and the 3 weeks they'd spent studying their opponent. "Captain," Peter called out suddenly, "I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the Krakthar fleet. Their formations are becoming erratic." Diana leaned forward. "The quantum device. Grant must have activated it." Inside the Krakthar command ship, Grant and his team had reached the central chamber after fierce fighting. The room was vast, with control stations manned by Krakthar officers. At its center stood Supreme Warlord Gracchus, his massive form encased in ornate battle armor. The warlord turned as the humans burst in, his yellow eyes narrowing with fury. "Earth vermin," he snarled. "You dare to invade my ship?" "We dare a lot of things," Grant replied, signaling his team to deploy the device. "That's kind of our specialty." Gracchus drew a fearsome energy blade. "Your primitive species cannot hope to defeat the Krakthar Dominion. We have conquered worlds for thousands of years. You are nothing." Grant smiled slightly. "That's where you're wrong. We might be new to the galaxy, but we've been fighting our own wars for our entire history, and we've gotten very good at it." The quantum device hummed as the Marines activated it. Blue energy pulsed outward in expanding rings, passing through the chamber and beyond. Gracchus roared and charged toward them, but suddenly stumbled, his movements becoming uncoordinated. Around the chamber, the Krakthar officers clutched their heads in pain. "What have you done?" Gracchus demanded. "Disrupted the quantum field that links your hive mind command structure," Grant explained. "The Aldarans figured out how your ships coordinate so perfectly. Now that connection is scrambled." Grant's comm unit crackled. "Major, this is Captain Moore. Whatever you did is working. The Krakthar fleet is in disarray, but the planet killer is still charging. You need to disable it now." "Understood, Captain." Grant turned to his team. "Nash, Martinez, secure the warlord. Johnson, Rogers, with me. We need to find the weapon controls." On the bridge of the Valiant, Diana watched as the Krakthar fleet's perfect formation dissolved into chaos. Ships that had moved in perfect harmony now drifted aimlessly or collided with one another. Admiral Dawson is reporting the same effect. "Throughout the Krakthar fleet," Sam reported. "Their coordination is completely disrupted." Diana nodded. "Tell all ships to focus on the command ship's weapon array. We have one chance to end this." The remaining human vessels converged, concentrating their fire on a single point of the massive Krakthar command ship. The combined firepower broke through the already weakened shields, striking the planet killer's charging array directly. "Direct hit," Peter announced. "The weapon's power levels are fluctuating." Inside the command ship, Grant and his team fought their way to the weapon control chamber. The Krakthar were still dangerous individual fighters, but without their coordinated tactics, the humans' superior training gave them the edge. They reached the massive room housing the planet killer's controls. The weapon's core glowed with ominous red energy, building toward critical levels. "Johnson, you're our tech expert." "Shut it down," Grant ordered. The Marine rushed to the alien control panel. "Sir, I can't read any of this. It's all in their language." Grant tapped his comm. "Captain, we've reached the weapon controls but can't decipher them. Any suggestions?" "Stand by, Major," came Diana's reply. Moments later, Zeth's voice came through. "Major Grant, I'm sending you a translation overlay for your visual display. Look for a sequence of pulsing symbols on the right side of the main console." Grant found them. "Got it. That's the emergency shutdown. You'll need to enter the sequence I'm transmitting now." As Johnson worked on the shutdown sequence, the ship rocked violently. "What was that?" Grant demanded. "Your fleet is attacking." "The weapon array from outside," Zeth explained. "The combination of external damage and internal shutdown should disable it permanently." The red glow of the weapon core flickered and then faded. "Captain Moore, we've done it," Grant reported. "The planet killer is offline." On the Valiant, a cheer went up from the exhausted crew. "The Krakthar fleet is breaking apart," Peter reported. "Many ships are retreating. Others are still fighting, but without coordination." Diana opened a channel to Admiral Dawson. "Admiral, we have an opportunity to capture the Krakthar command ship. With Supreme Warlord Gracchus as our prisoner, we might be able to negotiate a permanent withdrawal." "Agreed, Captain," Dawson replied. "Well done. You and your crew have performed beyond all expectations." Diana smiled for the first time in days. "It wasn't just us, sir. It was all of humanity working together with the Aldorans. We make a good team." 1 week later, representatives from Earth and Aldara gathered in the Great Hall of the Aldaran capital city. The room was filled with light from tall crystal windows. At the center stood Admiral Dawson and the Aldaran High Council. "Today, we formalize the bond between our peoples," said the Aldaran leader. "When we sent our call for help into the darkness of space, we did not know if anyone would answer. The humans not only came to our aid but fought with courage we had never witnessed." Admiral Dawson stepped forward with a data tablet. "The stellar accord between Earth and Aldara marks the beginning of a new chapter for both our worlds. Together, we will stand against aggression and tyranny throughout the galaxy." As they signed the historic agreement, Captain Diana Moore stood with her crew at the side of the hall. Peter Blackwell leaned closer to her. "Reports are coming in from across the sector. The news of the Krakthar defeat is spreading." "And?" Diana asked. 3 other species have already sent messages to Earth asking for similar protection. It seems we've made quite an impression." Diana looked around at the gathering. Humans and Aldarans standing together in friendship. Earth had entered the galactic stage not as conquerors, but as protectors. They had answered a call when no one else would, and in doing so, had changed the course of history. "It's just the beginning," she said. "The galaxy is vast and there are more stars than we can count. But wherever there's a call for help, humanity will answer." Outside the hall, the Aldaran sun shone brightly on a world that had nearly been lost, and in orbit above, the ships of Earth kept watch, guardians of a new alliance born in the fire of battle, proof that when pushed to their limits, humans could truly strike like a storm.